Hi, everybody. It is Do It Live for Wednesday, October 4th, 2017. I'm coming to you from the very well-known undisclosed location with Bill Woodcock.
Who is also at an undisclosed location. Yes, Jamie, it's 10-4. Happy CB Radio Day.
Oh,
Did you
God,
ever have
that's
a CB
terrible.
radio back in the day?
Wait, say that again, dude?
Did you ever have a CB radio? Today is October 4, so it is 10-4 day, as
Well,
in 10-4, good buddy.
Bill, I never had a CB radio. I dated girls.
Well, how are the two exclusive?
I'm just saying.
I mean, if you had a CB radio back in the day, you could get a girl such as Sally Field.
Dude, I'm under 107.
What do you mean you're under 107? That's the end of the FM dial. I don't understand what you're talking about. I mean, you're
I meant
keeping
my
it in
age.
radio. Sally Field is a fetching lady.
Isn't she like 312?
No.
Oh.
Let me ask you a more simpler question, Jamie. One that perhaps possibly even you may be able to answer.
Okay.
What is a bump stock?
I have no idea. I was thinking about Googling it, but I'm afraid of that turning up in my browser history.
Well, so yeah, well, especially if you do it at work, I really wouldn't.
Well, I got my
A bump stock is apparently some device you could put on a handgun to change it from a semi-automatic handgun to a fully automatic handgun. And bump stocks are apparently legal to buy in this country, yet illegal to utilize. Please explain to me the loopholes in law and or sanity that make such things possible.
wait. So I can't explain that, but I have a serious problem with somebody, and I don't know who it was. It was probably Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, was on NPR today talking about he's got a new bill that will eliminate sales of bump stocks. Now, I don't really care one way or another about that bill. I'm sure it'll be ineffective, but his heart's at least in the right place, right? But here's the problem I have is when he was asked whether this would prohibit sales or prohibit the use of them, he said, and I quote, "It is my understanding that this bill will do X." And it's I have a serious problem if you've just put a bill into Congress and put a bill into the Senate, and then you're immediately on NPR talking about it. If you can't tell us what that bill does, and you're just sitting there saying, "I think it does this," I got a serious problem with that. That pissed me off more than you can imagine. It's the same thing the Republicans were guilty of with regard to the ACA repeals. This is just stupid. Fucking read the bill before you submit it.
Well, what you're talking about is making gun control a political issue. And what you're talking about, what Chris Murphy's doing, is doing what Democrats and Republicans have been doing with the gun issue for about 15 years, kicking the can down the road. It is much, much easier to blame symbols such as the Confederate flag or to hide behind mental illness and, oh, well, we need to do more things with mental illness and we need to fully fund mental illness, which you do, except not all mentally ill people want to go out and buy handguns and shoot people. So in hiding behind that little bit of cover, you're also stigmatizing mental illness as a legitimate medical condition. And so, this is our lack of wanting to do anything. When Barack Obama said at Sandy Hook, I hope this is the last time I have to give one of these sad speeches, I still think he had to give about 6 or 7 more during his presidency.
Yeah, I'm not sure that worked out as well for him as everyone else thinks it did.
What's that?
I don't think that worked out as well for him as he thinks it did. I think
No, I don't think it did either. Nothing got done.
And I think that I want to go back to something I posted it again Monday morning, but it was after some incident in 2015, and I think it's remarkable that I can't even tell them apart anymore. So whichever one happened around the beginning of December 2015. I did a quick, I was at one of Chase's chess tournaments, and those things are really boring.
youth chess boring? I find that hard to believe.
Well, the thing is, most of the time they're not playing. So there are two reasons here these things are boring. One, most of the time they're not playing, they're waiting for a round to start. And two, we're not allowed to watch.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, so I actually did a back of the envelope calculation of the amounts of
Are they afraid that Chase is going to acquire knowledge of Rachmaninoff's gambit?
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Huh. Anyway, I'm sorry. Back of the envelope calculation.
I did a back of the envelope calculation showing that at that point in 2015, the total number of gun deaths, just the deaths, had taken 111 or so billion dollars out of the economy, and that's actually a lot of money. I mean, that's a huge chunk of it's a major recession, is what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something that is lost on a lot of people, is that there are real costs, real harms to everyone. I mean, because that is a hurt to everyone from one person dying in one of these events.
So what's going to change it? Because another statistic I saw, which was that the gun lobby in its various forms, the NRA and others, gave congressional Republicans something like $6 million during this last election cycle, and then gave Democrats 160,000. So what's going to change this? I mean, when is enough enough? Because obviously nothing's worked so far.
I don't have an answer to that. I was hoping you knew when enough was enough, because obviously we're not there yet. And I think there's a meme on Facebook which really well addresses this, which is that Sandy Hook wasn't the beginning; it was the end, because that's when we decided killing kids was okay. So who the hell else was gonna? What's worse than that?
Well, and you also, well, and then there's also a racial, ethnic, socioeconomic factor here too. So there's really no easy answer so far to what this shooter's motivation was.
Yeah, and I keep seeing a lot of people say
this is a wealthy, retired white man who was making his living and making his money gambling, and seemed to be pretty happy.
Yeah,
just had a lot of guns.
Well, yeah, and that's weird. But one of the things I'm getting frustrated with is that there's a small but very vocal contingent on Facebook which is complaining that no one will call it terrorism because this dude's white. And I'm like, no, nobody's going to call it terrorism because we don't know why he did it. I mean, if he went out there, if he went out there and started shooting people because God told him this would liberate their souls from the reptiles they live in, that's not terrorism. That's just psychotic. And there is a difference. And I think we need to recognize that. We need to recognize it there. Because if we try to treat every one of these incidences as terrorism, we cannot do that. It will not address the problem. It will not solve the problem, because that changes the motivation from being something intrinsic to being something extrinsic. And something extrinsic we can deal with, because that's how we fought the war on terror for the last 20 years, very unsuccessfully, but that's another matter entirely. Whereas if it's something intrinsic, we have to address that some other way. We do that through mental health. We do that through restricting access. We do it through those approaches.
See, I'm going to differ from you, but for a reason not that you will read a lot of people posting on Facebook. I do consider this an act of domestic terrorism because it was clearly premeditated. It clearly had intent. It clearly was planned. The only question that we don't know the answer to is why. And you can make that same case about many a suicide, attack, bombing, whatever. There was no note left behind, no manifesto or whatever. But clearly, this was something meant to make a statement, make a message, send a message. And for that reason, it was terrorism. It's not, whether the guy was white, black, brown, rich, poor, middle class. This was a terrorist act.
I hear what you're saying. I think you're wrong, but that's another story entirely.
Why am I wrong?
Because if there isn't a message, if you failed, I mean maybe he's a failed terrorist because he failed to actually get his message across. But if there's no message, if there's terrorism is very specifically a thing where you commit an act against a third party to get party two to change their behavior in some way, economically or politically or something like that. You attack, because obviously you're like, I'm going to keep, it's the whipping boy of international politics. I mean, that's why terrorists commit these acts.
Terrorism can't be senseless?
I'm sorry?
Terrorism can't be senseless?
Senseless is kind of an ill-defined term here.
How so? It's pretty clear in this case.
I don't know. What do you mean by senseless?
This was a senseless act. That's what I mean. Why does it have to send a message?
I'm just saying it has to send a message to be terrorism.
I don't know if I agree with that. Then what is, if this is not terrorism, then what is it?
I said, somebody's just crazy. Let's look at the Beltway sniper, right? Mm-hmm. The motive behind the Beltway sniper was something completely weird, right?
Right.
Was, he was trying to kill his ex-wife and just make her be one of the victims of this random acts of violence.
Was that terrorism?
No, it's not. That's like
I think it was.
No, there's like a thing. Terrorism is very specifically a thing.
A murder in someone's home, like what was recently adjudicated in where we live, and as we've known several instances of recently, I don't consider an act of terrorism. I don't consider a Pier 6 brawl an act of terrorism. Something of this magnitude and scope is an act of terrorism.
No.
There's no other motivation for it. This was not a guy robbing a bank. This was not a guy looking to steal stuff from a store. This was not a guy even willing to, who was even going to go take out a measure of revenge against a former employer. And there's where I would see the terrorism comes in. You mentioned Sandy Hook. What was the point of Sandy Hook? What was the message of Sandy Hook? Just that somebody could go into school and shoot up kids? I think here's somebody who went into a hotel and shot up a bunch of concert goers.
My recollection is with the Sandy Hook killer, there was a lengthy paper trail of mental health issues associated with him.
So now you cross into that territory. So somebody has to be mentally ill in order to create an act of terrorism.
No, not at all. I'm saying it's very specifically not an act of terrorism.
You don't think Sandy Hook was terrorism?
No.
Wow. Okay. I'm interested to know what exactly was 9/11 terrorism?
Yeah, that was. There was a political motivation to it.
Was the Army major in Fort Hood or whatever it was in Texas who shot up the base, was that terrorism?
I have to admit, I don't remember anything about that one.
Okay, was Tim McVeigh terrorism?
Was what?
Tim McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What about the Pulse nightclub?
Did we ever figure out what his motivation was?
I don't know. I don't know if we did. I seriously don't know if we did.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But you say you don't know if that's terrorism because of motivation.
No, I gotta just been crazy.
I say it's terrorism.
Okay, you're wrong.
I think you're wrong.
I will have to say that on Thursday, last week, I had lunch with one of our distinguished viewers, and she suggested to me that we needed more disagreement on the show. So I'm very proud to have delivered that tonight.
Well, that's good. That's good. I appreciate it. Now I have another question for you.
Yeah, hit me.
How's your jump shot?
My jump shot? Yeah, white boys can't jump.
Can you put a gooseneck on the end of a roll of paper towels and shoot that out into the crowd like the president did yesterday in Puerto Rico?
I prefer to do it with toilet paper. You get a better spin.
So you admit to throwing rolls of toilet paper at impoverished masses.
No, just their homes.
So how was the grand appearance of the Trump in Puerto Rico?
Well, he did complain about how much we were going to have to spend on them.
Well, he said that we were going to have. He said that they were breaking the budget, but then he also said some illegible, unintelligible things about retiring Puerto Rico's debt, wiping it clean.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he's going with that. That could be the most interesting thing to come out of this whole deal. I mean, Puerto Rico's finances are a mess. Not that, whether or not a hurricane hits. So what they do with this is going to be an interesting thing. I don't know.
Could it be a good thing?
Well,
I don't know who Puerto Rico owes money to. Is it the U.S. Treasury?
No, bondholders.
Okay, and these are on municipal, or whatever Puerto Rico.
Well, so Puerto Rico's a weird case because I'm not sure how they get treated under tax law.
I don't know either.
I didn't bother to look it up, but I would have to say that I'm going to assume that most of the holders are going to be large insurance companies anyway, and other institutional holders. So that's who holds most of the debt.
So I don't know enough to know about how this would work, and I really don't think anything will ever come out of it. But could there have been a more ridiculous appearance yesterday than, thank God you only lost 16 people as opposed to a real catastrophe like Katrina, and then of course the death toll more than doubles today. The jump shots with the rolls of paper towels. Melania needs to stop wearing designer clothes to these sites of tragedies. I'm really not getting that. This is not a fashion statement ever. It's okay for her to not wear makeup when she's going to a disaster area. No one cares about her looking pretty. I'm, is he getting any better as comforter in chief? He was in Vegas today, and I'm not sure. I mean, Texas was a shit show.
Yeah.
I mean, his performance in Texas was absurd. Is it getting any better?
No. And well, I mean, it depends. If he's listening to what somebody else tells him to say, sure, he does fine. I mean, not great, but it doesn't want to leave anybody sit there going, "Oh, Jesus Christ, what the hell happened here?"
You agree with the Secretary of State, and that he's a moron.
I disagree with Secretary Tillerson. I believe that the Secretary does not express or convey the enormity of how moronic he is when he just calls him a moron. Perhaps he was being diplomatic.
Perhaps. I would say he would not meet the clinical definition of a moron.
But I really got to say, I don't. If you would have stopped me on the street in 2012 and said, "Do you think Donald Trump is stupid?"
You see what I'm doing here?
Huh? Oh yeah, I see that. That's very good. You're doing your Alec Baldwin impression.
I am.
I don't. If you'd stopped me on the street in 2012 and asked me if Donald Trump was an idiot, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. Why would I think that? Because I paid any attention to the dude.
There are many reasons to think Donald Trump an idiot that have absolutely nothing to do with being the 45th president of the United States.
Well, I mean, I knew he had some bad business deals.
He killed spring football. We could have football now, professional football now, 12 months a year, if not for Donald Trump.
I don't.
That would be awesome. He has bad steaks. His steaks went out of business. The steaks were horrible. Trump the game, blue chunks. Nobody wanted Trump the game. I have been saying, and anybody who went to college with me will know that one of my favorite sayings in the Kappa Sigma fraternity house at Johns Hopkins University was "Trump sucks," because I had a fraternity brother who wanted to follow and emulate Donald Trump because he wanted to follow Trump's life. He just thought that Donald Trump was this amazing man who, was in his early 40s and had acquired so much. He made the prediction that he would race Trump and Bill Gates to become the world's first trillionaire. Well, Trump actually lingered pretty far behind. Bill's doing pretty good at it. And my fraternity brother Ganesh is a successful physician, but I think he's probably in third place in that race. But I have been saying it forever. Trump sucks. He sucked in 1986. He sucked in 1989. He sucked in 1997. And he sucks now.
What does he suck?
Chris Oxenham. Which, if you've ever had a Chris Oxenham, it is a brand of ham that is violently rancid. And you can quote me on that. Violently rancid.
Violently rancid.
Look for it in your least favorite store. Not even Borman's Market, that den of health violations, would carry a Chris Oxenham.
I don't know.
By the way, Borman's Market is a fine establishment. I have gone there many a time. I'm just kidding, Borman's Market. You're a good place. But I'm glad you don't carry the Chris Oxenham. They're little tiny hams. They're little sawed-off hams, and they think that they're really smart, but they think they're really tasty, but they're ignorant and useless. It's a Chris Oxenham.
It sounds like a member of the Republican Central Committee.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about a brand of ham that I have seen in a local store.
Can I vote?
Chris Oxen ham.
Ah, I see. You sure this reminds me of some people I know? It's very weird. It's uncanny. So did not expect that to happen in this conversation. I don't know. Well, you had a third topic you wanted to discuss tonight, and I've forgotten what it is. What was it?
Yes. The great science fiction classic, Dune.
Oh, my Dune. Yes. You saw the Dune ballet?
Yes, we were witness recently. You have been 3 times a witness.
I have been 3 times.
To the Dune ballet.
The Dune ballet is pretty awesome.
It's been put on by a theater based in Baltimore. They came out to Columbia to do a performance. And I recently, earlier this week, became reacquainted with the David Lynch-directed Dune movie, which is one of the most horrible movies of all time.
No, that movie's fantastic.
I cannot, but I have to. I can only believe that the great David Lynch intentionally made this movie to be campy and not all that incredible, in order to grab kind of that Pulp Fiction-y feel to how he interpreted the source material. I'm also fascinated to see all the sounds and the industrial themes that he later used in Twin Peaks: The Return, which just ended its run on Showtime. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was. I didn't get to see that, unfortunately.
I heard you were talking about art.
We were talking about art. Do you want to be a guest on our show?
No.
Oh, why are you talking?
So both the Dune the ballet and Dune the movie, of course, have a soundtrack. The ballet used some of the music out of the soundtrack, which was also semi-god awful.
That was Toto. What the hell's wrong with you?
It was what?
It was Toto. What the hell's wrong with you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on Jamie's side on that.
Toto can do better.
The disembodied voice agrees with me.
That would be a first. That would put Mark today in red. So
yeah, the first time.
So there's the soundtrack. There is a book called Dune. There is the movie of Dune. There are Dune is on audiobook. Dune is on various media, and a cursory search of Google and other sources reveals that Dune is also available in educational film strip form, in reels for the GAF Viewmaster, and also a Play-Doh playset. There's apparently negotiations for Lego Dune. So which of these media, you know, from ballet all the way through Play-Doh and Lego Dune, would be your favorite mechanism by which to receive the story and the message of Dune?
I gotta say, I really like the David Lynch movie. I think it's fantastic. I think that the movie is absurd. It's weird, and it doesn't make any sense if you haven't read the book. And even then, it still doesn't make a lot of sense. But I think it has a certain aesthetic to it, which is very pleasant, and it conveys in a way different from the book the common problems that develop, you know, from ecological disaster, reliance on religious figures, and of course, you know, cocaine.
Would you like to know my answer?
Sure.
The answer is clear. It is educational film strip.
Is there really an educational film strip?
Yes. With a cassette tape. It is 32 frames of greatness with a beep after each frame, so you know when to turn the frames. And it very nicely synopsizes everything.
I need a link to this.
I'll have to, once I get off the computer, I'll have to send you a link.
And do we have a copy of this in the library?
In the Howard County Library, it's supposed to be the best library system in the cosmos, so I don't see why not.
Yeah, there you go. So that would be fantastic.
Yeah, but I do believe that Dune in Lego could when it comes out.
Don't say that. Chase will make me buy it for him.
Christmas 2018 could be a thing. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Dune in Lego could be stupendous.
You know, Dune is something that could totally be done again and completely reinterpreted in a different way. Because, I mean, I wasn't very impressed with the miniseries, but I think it could be reinterpreted as a standalone movie again in a way that's very different and very good without it being just a straight rip-off of the prior. I mean,
yes.
You know,
there needs to be some sort of a Dune franchise.
Yeah, well,
you know, I have not seen The Dark Tower yet, but I have heard that The Dark Tower movie is a CF, because it does way too much and it encompasses too many of the books in one movie. If they took the Dune series and they went movie to movie to movie, book to book to book, roughly, you know, I think that could still work. And not for nothing, I mean, I would have liked to have seen the David Lynch movie. You know, in his style, I think I get what he was trying to do, but I would have liked to have seen for a movie in the 80s a little bit less, you know, a little bit less intentionally low production values. I mean, that thing almost had, you know, it was almost down to the paper plates on strings for spaceships. It was almost at that level.
But it did have Patrick Stewart.
It did have Patrick Stewart, and I had forgotten that Patrick Stewart was in that thing. And he was chewing up scenery.
It was great.
He was bald. He was just as bald as he is now.
He was bald when he was like 12.
That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be awful to be that.
Although, and I did not know this until recently, but Jennifer Hendrick, who you may recall played Vash on Star Trek The Next Generation,
Okay.
he dated her briefly.
Well, excellent. And then, of course, we all know about the Patrick Stewart and the Famke Janssen.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard. There's a really great quote from Brent Spiner about this. He's always on the lookout for the next Mrs. X Sir Patrick Stewart.
So, I mean, Patrick Stewart can still go. I mean, why he's tooling around New York with Ian McKellen, I have no clue.
No, we all need hobbies.
But they take like weird pictures of themselves.
They do.
It's strange.
Anyway, we've been on for half an hour. I say we close it down.
Speaking of strange, that's a good segue.
That's a good segue.
I like this. This was good. Let's do it again in approximately 167.5 hours.
I think we should.
And by the way, that sort of ham I was talking about, that's not available in any store. That doesn't exist.
You know, I'm going to go check, and if I can't find it, I'm doing the next show in the nude.
Ooh. Okay.
There you go.
On that note, from our undisclosed location, we are signing off.
Have a great night, everyone.
Suckers.